Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar on understanding the GMAT algorithm. Before I get started, I would like to know whether you can hear me loud and clear. So if you can just put in the chat box a quick yes that you can hear me clearly, and then I can get started. So I'll wait for about 5-10 seconds. Those of you who are live and are watching the session, I would request you to please write yes. Okay, I can see Shivam saying yes, you can hear me, which is great. So guys, let's get started. Once again, welcome to this webinar on understanding the GMAT algorithm. And I'll quickly introduce myself. My name is Saqib. I am the product lead at GMAT Viz and also one of the co-founders of GMAT Viz. I do take I've taken the GMAT myself. I've been in this edtech industry for about close to, I would say about 10 years now. This year, I think by the end of this year, it'll be close to 11. And uh, so some of you might have attended my quant webinars. I like taking quant sessions. In fact, this is also one of the webinars which I conduct a few times, and I like taking it because this is an interesting topic, a topic about GMAT algorithm, which requires us to analyze a lot of, data points to understand how this algorithm works, and it kind of is very, very interesting. So what I'm going to do today is we are going to discuss about why is it important. Okay, why is it important to understand about the GMAT algorithm, and to understand it well, to understand it the GMAT algorithm well, what you need to do is, first of all, think about what are the kind of problems do you face. So can you very quickly tell me, when you're taking a mock, or if you have taken any mock, or when you're preparing or taking a quiz, what kind of key concerns do you have in your mind? And in general also, if you have any questions when you're taking if you have taken the GMAT, and say, let's say if you haven't done well in it, what kind of concern did you have? What goes in your mind? Like, to give you an example, let me give you one of the concerns that I can think of, which almost everybody comes up and asks me is, especially when they're taking in the mock phase section, is that I always feel a time crunch towards the end of the test. How should I pace myself, right? So what kind of other similar problems do you think have you faced? So Shivam, Naveen, all those who are attending this webinar, if you can let me know, what are your other concerns? Okay, Shivam talks about application. Okay, so I'm assuming you're talking about the application of concept. Um, okay, I'll briefly touch upon it, how having a sound application can help you out. Anything else? Okay, one of the key concerns obviously is not understanding how the GMAT algorithm works. So if you don't understand how the GMAT algorithm works, understanding how to manage your time could also be a problem. You might also notice issues like you might be scoring poorly because you're not able to complete the last few questions properly because of timing issues, right? And average timing is also one of the biggest concerns that I've seen. So even if you have studied the concept, you've understood everything, but when you're solving the questions, you end up taking a lot of time. So how should you improve your average time? And lastly, and importantly, one other factor is that you might feel anxious on the test day, and you may end up making silly mistakes. Yes, Hamad, so I'm going to touch upon the time management. Believe me, understanding the GMAT algorithm really well can also help you understand how to manage your time properly. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to consider a lot of test cases. I'm going to show you different examples and help you understand how the algorithm works, and how you can, build a strategy around that algorithm so that you can maximize your score as much as possible. Okay, so before I discuss the structure of the algorithm, I just want to make a brief announcement because it's Black Friday almost, and we are running a sale. So if any one of you, if any of you are interested in, preparing, if any of you are preparing for GMAT, and if you're looking to buy an online plan, I would say this would be the right time to buy it. We even have introduced our new pricing model, where we are giving options of buying a course for 2 months and 4 months. So I've shared the link with you. If you want, you can have a look at it. Okay, so now Coming to and by the way, this is like one of the most steep discount that you would get we usually never sell it for $199 for 6 months. So I think this is a great opportunity for any one of you who want to buy it. Now, coming to how are we going to structure the session today? So what, as I told you, I'll start off by discussing some of the few case studies, test strategies. With the help of these case studies, I'll help you understand when to leave questions, when not to leave questions. All these things I'm going to discuss with the help of case studies. And then once you understand these, once you have a good understanding of how the algorithm can affect your score, then we can then you will be in a better position to understand how to develop the timing strategy for verbal. And while discussing the timing strategy of verbal, I'm also going to focus on how you can reduce your time per question also. Okay, then finally I will be talking about the timing strategy for quant, and then if you have any questions at the end, then feel free to ask me at the end of the webinar. Okay, so I'll start off with the case studies on test strategies now. By the way, I can see a question in the chat box. I bought the course yesterday. How many hours I should study every day if I have to give the GMAT end of Jan? Okay, so see, as far as the numbers of hours are concerned, it varies from person to person depending on your initial ability. Okay, so if you have prepared before, then you might need less time. If you haven't prepared before, if you're starting from scratch, you may need a little bit more time. So to give you a better idea on how much time you would be needing, I would recommend, you must, if you bought the course, you will also get a mail regarding your mentor, because we do provide mentors to everyone. So get in touch with your mentor. Tell the mentor your background first, and on the basis of that, they will be in a very good position to tell you how much time, how many hours do you need to study, and how much time do you need. Okay, if you're new, then you would see overall you would need about 200 hours. Again, I'm just giving a ballpark number. If you are comfortable with quant verbal, then you might need slightly less, but roughly, I would say 200 hours is what you would need. You will get the mail. Don't worry about it. Might be the weekends because of which you might have not got the mail, but you'll get it. Okay, so don't worry about it. You can get in touch with your mentor and understand how much time you would need. Okay. So coming back to how the discussion, let's understand how the algorithm works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you a question, okay? And you tell me if whenever you tell these smart students who take this test, when I'm saying smart students, I mean people who are able to get 700 plus. What do you think? What kind of strategy do they use? Do they use the first strategy? Do they keep enough time for all questions? Like 2 minutes per question, and then is that the kind of strategy that they use to take the test, or do they, while taking the test, fall short in the last 4 or 5 questions? What do you think is the strategy used by smart students? What do you think? You can post your answer in the chat box. Option one or option two. Think of it in this way: that if you want to score 700 plus, what do you think would be the ideal option? Enough time for all questions, or fall short of time in the last 4 or 5 questions? And I would highly encourage all of you to participate, because I want to keep it a bit interactive. And the more you respond, the more you tell me, your thought process, I can tell you where you are going wrong and help you more out. Okay, so just participate. What do you think? How do smart students take the test? Do they keep enough time for all questions, or do they fall short of time in the last 4 or 5 questions? Okay, Hamad says one. Shangsha says one. Shivam also says one, of course. Okay. Yeah. See, most of these students end up saying that they have enough time. If you want to do well, you should have enough time for all the questions. Unfortunately, that is something that we do not follow. Okay, and I'll help you with the helping example. But style one is the optimal style. No, I'm not saying that that's not the best. You should not have enough time for all questions. Those people, there could be a few students who may be able to keep time for, either you might be able to complete the mock beforehand only, or they might be able to spend 2 minutes per question and do it. But in general, if you ask our advice, we would say no. That is not how smart students take the test. They do not have enough time for all questions. In fact, they usually go for case two, which is they might fall short for a few for the last 4 5 questions. And to help you understand this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take up a case study. In fact, this is a case study of Piyush only. He is one of our strategy consultants at GMAT Wiz. And when he took his GMAT, he kind of was facing this kind of a problem. Okay, and this is a problem which it's not only with Piyush. I've seen whenever I get on a mentorship call with a lot of students, and when I'm discussing their verbal section and talking about how they are doing well in mocks and the sectional quizzes, they always end up in talking and telling me that, hey, I was taking the mock and I was left with 15 minutes, 20 minutes, I had 8 questions and I didn't know what to do. And this is like the one of the best case studies I can think, if it can help you understand what you should ideally do. Should you keep time for all questions, sufficient time, or you should leave a few of them? So what happened with Piyush was that he was left with 14 questions, 19 minutes, and as you can understand, if you look at it, he hardly had, in fact, if you look at even less than 1.5 minutes that he had with him for each and every question, right? And at that point of time, he got up a RC passage which was weird, convoluted, pretty dense to understand. Now, think about it. If you are in such a situation, put yourself in his shoes and think, what would you do? Would you, and I'm giving you some options, okay? So you can choose from the 3 options that I'm going to give you. Would you kind of skip some of the questions, do them half-heartedly, okay? Or do you do the RC well and be selective in the last 10 questions? Or would you skip the passage altogether and focus on the on getting the last 10 questions correct? What would you do? Okay, keep in mind that the RC that Piyush got, for the sake of discussion, let's say, the student got was dense, difficult, not easy to understand. Okay, you're just left with 19 minutes. Let's think you are in the shoes. What would you do? Which option would you choose? Okay, Jay says 3, Shalini says 2, B, okay. Shivam says B. And can you give me a rationale? So, those of you who are saying B or those of you who are saying C, why are you saying that? I would want to, get into your mind and understand what exactly are you, why are you exactly saying B or C? No one's choosing A, okay, which is interesting. Why do you think C or B is the best strategy? Okay, Meher has chosen A. Ahmad is also choosing A. Okay. Oh, please don't choose it just because I said no one's choosing. Okay, just to let you know that that's not the purpose of doing it. But just 1 or 2 line telling me why do you think you should do that. Okay, Shalini is saying that 14 questions are still left and hence the score is still building up and hence B. Okay, GMAT says I have given competitive exams before and C brought me good marks. Okay, were these exams adaptive? Keep in mind that this exam is adaptive. Okay, the more better you perform, the harder questions that you'll get. If you know for sure that a few of them are time consuming, better to focus on that. Better to focus on that can be done quick and secure marks. Okay. Okay, let me tell you, very few people usually end up choosing B. In fact, mostly whenever we ask this question to a lot of students, they usually end up choosing A or C. And keep in mind, I was kind of emphasizing on this fact that the RC that the student got, that Piyush got, was a convoluted one. Now, what is the meaning of that? Can you tell me how was that? How well do you think the student was performing during that time? Think about it. The first 22 questions are done. The next 4 questions an RC question. So what do you think? How well was the student doing? Was he doing well or was the student not doing well? What do you think? Okay, I can see he was performing well. Actually, good if RC was tough, then he was exactly. So, guys, understand this fact. As I was emphasizing on the fact that the RC was difficult and the exam is adaptive. The GMAT test is adaptive. It's not not a normal competitive exam like where the questions are already decided and you just need to pick and choose. In a situation where you just need to pick and choose questions from a fixed set of questions, like some of the Indian exams like CAT and all, where okay that everyone during the same time slot is getting the same questions, then in that case, picking and choosing does make sense. But here, you have worked really hard in the first 22 questions to reach at a stage where you are getting high value questions that can fetch you a lot of score, right? Now, if at this point of time, if you decide to skip these questions or do half-heartedly, especially those 4 questions, then what's going to happen is that you're not scoring well in it. In fact, there's a good chance that if you are skipping them or not and doing them half-heartedly, you might get all of these questions incorrect. Okay, and if you get all of these incorrect, then what is actually happening? What is actually happening is that you have lost all the the momentum that you have built up to get a good score. And since you have got 4 questions or 3 questions back to back wrong, since you were skipping or doing them half-heartedly, the remaining questions that you would get, the remaining 10 questions that you would end up getting would be low value questions. Okay, and since you would be getting low value questions, the chances of getting a higher score reduces, and you may end up getting a 36 to 39. Now, this is like just a guess that you're making, that this is around what you would end up getting. But Piyush did end up getting a 41 in this case, okay? And he did not follow this strategy. He did not do this. And the reason behind this is you need to understand is that you should ideally not give up on high value questions. Think about it. If you follow the right strategy, if you do this RC question well. Now, in this case, the student, when when Piyush got this RC, he was actually, kind of bogged down. Wasn't sure what to do, whether to skip, whether to leave, and in such situations, people do panic. In fact, honestly speaking, I did panic in my GMAT test also, that in such a situation where you are not sure what to do. Now, in such situations, what I would recommend is to pause for a moment, okay? So even if it means spending 20, 30 seconds in thinking, pause and think what should you ideally do. Now, in this case, what Piyush decided to do was that, and which is actually logical, is that if I focus on these 4 questions or 5 questions that I have that I'm getting next, and if I get these correct, okay, these are high value questions. So what is actually happening is that since you're getting them correct, you are making sure that you are consistently getting high value questions again and again, okay, till the point that you reach your last 36th question. You'll keep on getting higher value questions, okay? So that way you are maximizing your score more. You are getting more opportunities to get more difficult questions correct. But if you go with strategy 1 or strategy 3, where you're half-heartedly solving questions, or you're skipping it altogether hoping to do the last 10 well, then in that case you'll be getting these high value questions wrong, and you will be getting low value questions, so the potential of scoring more reduces. Okay, so it is very, very important that in such scenarios that you think, pause, decide what you need to do. We do understand that you had 14 questions and 19 minutes, right? Now, I know pausing might seem like counterintuitive. You'll think, hey, I'm spending, 20, 30 seconds in thinking. So if I end up thinking, won't I waste time? Well, in this case, Piyush did not. He spent about 30 seconds thinking. He, in fact, spent 5 minutes reading the RC passage since it was difficult. But he was able to do all the 4 questions that were there in a minute. And again, this is a part of an RC strategy where ideally we ask you to read your RCs really well. You should read it, understand it so well, so that you don't have to spend a lot of time when you're solving questions. So effectively, you end up spending 9.5 to 10 minutes. Okay, and by the time he was done with his RC, he was left with 10 questions and 10 minutes, which is fine. Which is fine because I have got all of these correct. In fact, he did get all of them, all these correct. I'll show you his ESR also. But the point is, if you get these correct, then the remaining 10 questions that you have, you can pick and choose. Not a problem. Because now all of these are high value questions. So if these are high value questions, if you have 10 minutes, if you can pick and choose questions, like for example, if you're more comfortable with sentence correction questions and they ideally take lesser time to solve than CR questions, then you can choose all the SC questions that are there, and then you can do 1 or 2 questions of CR. Or if you're more comfortable with CR, you do CR and skip SC depending on your strength. Okay. Now, I have a question in the chat box. How many tough questions you can get in one go? Usually, do you get more marks if you get tough questions correct? Yes. So you get more marks. The higher questions have a higher weightage. Okay. And there's no limit to how many tough questions can you get in one go. In fact, I'm going to show you, the distribution or the flow of the difficulty level. So the first question I'm going to answer after some time. Don't worry about it. It will be definitely clear to you how many tough questions you can get. But as far as the second question is concerned, yes. If you get more questions correct, then obviously difficult questions correct, the chances of scoring more is high. So one of the major takeaway that I want you to take from this is, and this is from the exam strategy perspective, is that if you the main difference between somebody who ends up getting a 700 or a 680 and somebody who ends up getting a 40-50 seconds is this 20-30 second strategic pause in the exam. What you need to understand is you cannot panic, especially in situations like these where you have less time, more number of questions left. You need to think in these terms that what would make more sense. Would it make sense for me to skip at this point of time, or would it make sense to get these correct because these are higher value questions? So make sure if you panic or you're in a situation like this, pause, decide the right strategy as shown here, and then only move ahead. These 20-30 seconds can help you actually gain your confidence back and you can get back into the game again. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to now properly focus on how the algorithm works. So just to, and I'm also going to, with the help of this very simplistic example, show you why getting questions in the initial phase makes more sense than in the last phase. Okay. So what I've done is here I have kind of, and these are random numbers. Okay. By the way, these are not the numbers that have been assigned by GMAT. Let's say, for example, a medium question, the score of a medium question is 3 points. The score for a mark for a medium hard question is 4, for a hard question is 5. Now, let's say there's a student 1, okay, and he gets the first question. Usually when you start, you'll always start with a medium question in the exam. He starts with the medium question, he gets that correct, okay. Then it gets a second question. Obviously, if you get that correct, you'll get a slightly higher difficulty question. You get that correct too. Third question, you get it correct too. So 3 questions back to back that student got correct. But now you're getting hard questions. The fourth question is still hard. Let's say you get it incorrect. Okay. The fifth question, let's say also, since you got incorrect, obviously the difficulty level will drop. And you got a medium hard question. You got this also incorrect. Okay. Let's take this hypothetical scenario. Can you tell me what is the score of the student? How much did he score? And what is his accuracy out of 5? Now, score, if you want to find the score, use these points to calculate the score. Can you tell me he got 3 questions correct, 2 incorrect? What is his score? And what is his accuracy? He got 3 correct out of 5. Three questions correct, one medium hard, one hard. Medium, the score of medium is 3, medium hard is 4, and the hard is 5. So how much did he score? And what is his accuracy? He got 3 out of 5 correct. Okay, I have got one answer. GMAT is saying 3 points. No, it will be 12. Yes, Pratik, correct. It will be 12, right? You got one medium correct, so you're getting 3 points here. Okay, you're getting 3 points here. You're getting 4 points here, and you're getting 5 points here. Okay, so you're totally getting 5 plus 4 plus 3. You're getting 12 points. Okay, and since you got 3 out of 5 correct, your accuracy is 60%. Correct, easy, fair enough. Now let's look at another scenario where another student is just getting 2 incorrect. Okay, there's another student out here, but what's happening is that he got his first question wrong. Obviously, if he gets the first question wrong, the difficulty level will reduce. Now you get another question. Let's say you get this also wrong. Okay, then again the difficulty level will reduce. You get this one correct, third one correct, fourth one correct, and fifth one correct. And obviously the difficulty level will increase if you're getting these correct. Now notice in this case, he got this one correct. So he got 1 point. Here he got 2 point. And here he got 3 point. So the total point that the student gets is just 6. And notice that the accuracy is still the same. Okay, the accuracy is still the same. So, and they both attempted 5 questions, and the difference is, as you can see out here, is just double. So the student who got 3 questions correct, and since he was getting correct questions from the starting only, and he was building up on this part, the potential to score was very high. Now, if you get questions wrong, then obviously later on, the potential to score decreases a lot. And that is why we emphasize on this fact that you need to make sure that you get questions correct in the initial phases only and not leave it till the end to get questions correct. Okay, that is like really, really, really important. Okay, so notice this case out here, that in this case, this is again Piyush's ESR, that when he ended up getting 41. I was talking the third quarter where he got the RC. As you can notice, he got 100%. Now here, notice he made 2 incorrect, 2 incorrect, 3 incorrect here, no incorrects obviously here. And with just 7 mistake, he was able to get a 41. Okay. Now, why I'm showing you this, you might ask. Obviously, I'll draw a comparison out here so that you understand what is the importance of getting questions correct in the early phase. Okay, so let's take this student. Okay, now in the first quarter, the student got 4 incorrect. In the second quarter, the student got 1 incorrect. And in the third quarter, the student got 3 incorrect. So notice almost the same, right? 3 incorrect, 3 incorrect. Here, in fact, he got 1. This student got 2 incorrect. The only difference, major difference is in the first quarter. Can you guess what is this verbal score? How much is this? How much do you think is the difference in the score? How much did this student get? The mistake, notice there's a difference of just one mistake, nothing else. What do you think is the verbal score in this case? No, GMAT marks don't get deducted for wrong answers. And yes, Shivam, I agree. There's obviously a difference in skills because of which this is happening. But what do you think is the score? Okay, Shivam says 34 to 36. What about the others? 38. Okay. 36. Okay, Bani says 36. Hariharan says 35, 34 to 36. Right, it seems now one mistake. What would be the difference? At the max, that should be a difference of 3 to 4 points, right? That is what goes in our mind. Let me show you what the score is. Look at this. Just one mistake. There's a difference of one mistake, but look at the difference. Can you believe this? A difference of 11 points. And what is the reason? The reason is that the student ended up making more mistakes, double the number of mistakes in the first quarter. Okay, and that resulted in a difference of 11 points. So I hope you understand why it is important. The first few questions or the initial phase is like really, really important. Okay, so those people who, those of you who end up, a lot of times I ask, people ask me this question is, hey, how many questions do I need to get correct or incorrect to get a 41 or a 42 or a 43? Well, I hope with the help of this example, you understand that there's no right metric here. The accuracy is not the right metric to decide this. Okay, because in our experience, we have seen cases like these also. Uh, like I just showed you this, right? V41. I showed you here V30. And even we have seen cases like this also with 9 mistakes. People have got scores like V22 or V24, these kind of scores. Okay, so just this taking a call on the basis of or taking a mental note and thinking, okay, if I make only 7 mistakes in the exam, I'll be able to get a V41 or a V42 is the wrong strategy. Okay, please don't do that. Don't just think in terms of the number of mistakes. It's also like really, really important to understand where are you making these mistakes. If you end up making these mistakes in the initial few questions or the initial phases, then believe me, you're done for. The score will not, you won't get a higher score. You need to ensure that you, even if you're making mistakes, make it at the end so that it doesn't affect your score a lot. Okay, and this basically, the reason we are saying that accuracy is not arithmetic, because just saying that you're getting 7 questions wrong, hey, why did I not get, now you might ask this question, right? This student just made 8 mistakes. Why did he not get even a V35 or V36? Right? He should have ideally got this much. There's just a difference of one mistake. Well, the problem is, since he made mistakes in the initial phase, he started guessing the same, he started getting easy questions. And since he started getting easy questions, he never had the chance, he or she, whoever the student is, never got the chance to recover. So accuracy is not the right metrics. Skill, in fact, is the right metrics on which you should decide what kind of scores you'll get. Okay, and what do I mean by skill? Okay, what I mean by skill is that you should have the ability to get all different kind of questions correct. Okay, whether it's an easy question or a medium question or a hard question, you should have that skill. You need to develop that skill so that you can be sure, okay, if in the initial phases also, if I get a difficult question or a medium question, I'm going to ace it. And since I'm going to ace those questions, I am pretty sure that with 7, even if I along the way, if I make 7, 8 mistakes, they would be difficult questions. So I will be able to get a good score. If you just overly focus on accuracy, thinking that okay, 7 mistakes, I'm done, and I should be able to do it, there's a good chance that you may falter because you are not focusing on the difficulty level, which basically decides how and the skill. If you're not able to get difficult questions correct, it's not going to work out. Shalini, almost the same strategy almost applies for quant. There's a slight difference because there's a difference in the number of questions, and I'm going to talk about that. So don't worry about this as much. Okay, I'll talk about quant also. Okay, so now the someone asked me this question. Let me very quickly check. I think Shivam asked me this question. No, GMAT only asked me this question that how many tough questions can you get in usually in one go, or how many questions, difficult questions can you get, right? So this is again a score report, ESR, of the difficulty level of the questions that the student got. Somebody who got a V30 and versus somebody who got a V41. And notice basically each quarter kind of consists of is basically divided into 4 quarters, 9 questions each. There are some experimental questions, but I'm not going to complicate the discussion a lot. What you need to focus is on these factors. The red ones are incorrect, the blue ones are correct. Now notice when the student who got a V30 started the section, the first quarter, the kind of questions that he was getting correct were usually easy medium. Okay, versus the student who was getting those questions, he was getting all the medium questions correct. Okay, and the kind of, and he was all this student was also getting questions wrong which were of medium level, so he never got the chance to get a higher difficulty level questions. Also focus, since he didn't do well in the first quarter, he never got the chance to do get a lot of difficult questions in the second quarter. And in fact, the moment he was given a few difficult questions, he faltered in them. The student faltered here. If the student would have got these higher difficulty level questions correct, then there would have still been a chance of salvaging some more points and taking this to V34 or something like that. But the moment you are getting difficult questions, even in the second quarter, if you're getting this wrong, you're done for. However, look at this student. In the second quarter, all the difficult questions that he got, most of the difficult questions that he got all of them correct. He got one easy question wrong, but again, for easy questions, the penalty is not that high. And difficult questions he was getting correct. So as you can notice, the difference out here in the second quarter, see this difference. Just because you did not perform well in the first quarter, how much of a big difference can it create by the time you're done with your second quarter? So the first 2 quarters are, in fact, the first 3 quarters are very important. But the main takeaway that you need to keep in mind is that the more you can delay your mistakes, okay, the better it is. So don't think that okay, in between that, okay, let me skip a few questions here randomly here and there, and I'll be able to do well in the exam because I'll get a few more questions correct. Okay, because that kind of mentality focuses on the accuracy, which is wrong. And as you can notice, even the third quarter, by the time the student is in third quarter, look at the difference in the type of question that you're getting. This student is still getting medium hard questions, while here you're still stuck in medium questions, even slightly below medium questions. So you never get the chance to recover. Okay. So it is very important that you delay your mistakes. Okay, I have a question here. A passage can come in the first quarter. It's a possibility, right? Yes, absolutely. There is a possibility of getting a passage in the first quarter also. Okay. So now you might ask this question. So what should be the approach? Okay. So as I told you, the first approach is, since as I told you, you need to delay your mistakes. How can you delay? If you delay your mistakes, what's going to happen? What is going to happen is that you will make the algorithm serve you hard questions, right? Because you're getting the first 8, 9, 10, 12 questions correct. So if you are able to get a good accuracy on easy and medium questions, which you get in the first quarter, this will force the algorithm to give you hard questions. Okay. And in the second, third quarter, you have to ensure, if you're approaching, if you want to get 700 plus, if you want to get a V40 plus, then you have to ensure that you get your hard questions again. How can you do that? You can do that by having the right skills, and you should know how to apply them. Now, I know the word skills might sound a bit vague, but I'll talk about what do I actually mean by skills. Don't worry about it. I know you may have some idea about it, but I'll clarify that this a bit more. But I hope this is perfectly clear. First 2 quarters, first quarter, make sure that you get the easy and medium questions correct, so that the algorithm serves you hard question. If you manage to get some or most of the hard questions correct, then obviously you can ensure that you'll be able to get a V41. And this basically table is to show you, how many medium hard questions we have. In fact, we have looked at a lot of ESRs, right? The past few years, we kind of went through a number of ESRs, tried to understand how many medium questions, how many medium hard questions the student get correct, and you can notice the difference. Notice how many medium hard questions usually a person with a V40 gets correct. And obviously, you can understand you cannot just get a medium hard question correct just by knowing the concept. Knowing concept is never enough. No, by just knowing the basic concept, you may be able to solve an easy question or a medium question. But to get a medium hard question correct, you have to have concepts plus skill. And obviously, the higher the score you aim for, the more medium hard questions you need to get correct. So you can notice the difference. Roughly about 12 questions you get whenever you're targeting 36, 39. Obviously, if you're in your mid 30s, like 34, 32, the number of medium hard questions you need to get correct is less. And obviously, as you can understand, somebody who has a V30 doesn't need to get a lot of medium hard questions, right? So if you're targeting, say for example, V34, V32, if that is kind of your target, then you can strategize, plan accordingly. Why am I showing you this? Is because there is a possibility that not all of you might be aiming for a 740. Okay, that's possible. Some of you may say, hey, I just need a 700 and I'm done with, or say, let's say I need a 680 and that's the kind of requirement I have. So this kind of a table can help you understand how deep you need to go to improve your skill. But if you're looking for a V40, then you definitely need to work on your skills. So far with this discussion, I'm sure you must have understood how important it is to the initial few questions, getting them correct, getting hard questions. But this is a question that you might have in mind. So what should I do about the last few questions, right? Because obviously, if I'm spending more time or if I'm focusing more on the initial questions, what should I do with the last few questions? And this again is related to the question which I asked in the starting, right? What do smart students do? Do they equally spend their time on all questions, or do they run out of time at the last 3 or 4 questions? So this is kind of going to answer your question. And see, I'm trying to convince you, prove you all through the data. I'm not, telling you from my experience or anything like that. The data says, the data clearly reflects each and everything, whether what you need to do. Now look at this. The student managed to get all questions correct in the last quarter. 100% accuracy, nothing wrong at all. But he made one mistake here, 3 mistake here. Okay. Can you see the score is still stuck at 34? Why is that? It is because the student made a lot of mistakes in the first 2 quarters. So you can understand the importance of the first 2 quarters, and you can see even if you end up getting a lot of questions correct at the end, it is not going to push your score a lot because now you're getting easy and medium questions. However, on the other hand, again, I'm using a quant ESR here, but you can notice, even if I now here I've made 3 mistakes here, okay? I made 3 mistakes here, I made 1 mistake. I've ended up making 4 mistakes out here in the last few sections. But since I managed to ace my first 2 quarters really well, it did not matter even if I made 3 mistakes at the end. And I'm still ending up getting a 50 out here. Okay, so please, and I'm not saying, again, understand these things, that I'm not saying that don't focus at all in the last questions, skip all of them, get as many wrong as possible. What I'm trying to say is that, yes, if you can optimize your time and make sure that you can get even the last few questions correct, feel free to do that. That is not a problem. Okay, Shivam, I'll come to your question about not attempting. Okay, there's a difference between not attempting and, attempting it. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is that even if at the end you're running short on time, okay, if you have aced your first 2 to 3 quarters, okay, in the last quarter, even if you become picky and choosy and decide which ones to do, which ones not to do, it is not going to impact your score a lot. Okay, and please keep in mind, this is very important, make sure that you mark all questions. Okay, that means attempt all questions. Attempting is very important. You cannot leave any question. Okay, so let's say, for example, if you are left with 3 questions at the end, okay, and you have 1 minute, make sure that you mark all 3 of them. Don't leave any question, because you're penalized if you leave any question. Say, for example, you did your 29th question and you ran out of time. If something like this happens, then obviously you'll be penalized more. So it is better to complete your full section. What I'm trying to say is that even at the end, if you're left with 3 questions and 1 minute, and if you end up guessing all of these and getting, say, all 3 incorrect, if you manage to do well from here to here, there's no problem at all. because you are delaying your mistake, and at the end the effect of your mistakes is not going to be a lot, because the algorithm is kind of decide what kind of score you need to get. Okay, but if in the initial phase you make more and more mistakes, then even at the end, if you end up doing really well, it's not going to help you at all. Okay, so let me talk very quickly about the timing strategy. Okay, just to help you understand, and I hope till this point everything is clear. I know I've been doing a monologue for some time, not asking a lot of questions, but if you have any questions, guys, feel free to chime in, and I'll answer them if there's anything not clear. Now, this is a very interesting question, and this is something which I want to talk about because I have been seeing, people giving a lot of timing advice, which I kind of disagree with, and I wanted to focus on this part. So tell me, when you're planning your, how much time you need to distribute for each quarter, what would be the best strategy? Would you end up giving, by the way, these would be 16 minutes each. These are 16, not 18. Okay. Would you end up giving 16 minutes in each quarter? Okay, roughly 16 minutes. Or would you prefer a strategy like this, where you give a lot of time in the starting and leave for the last 2 quarters, whatever happens, happens? What would you prefer to do? Or do you think there's a third strategy out there? Would you prefer a linear strategy where you end up spending equal amount of time in each quarter? Will that make sense? Or a start heavy strategy would make sense? Okay, Shalini says in between. Okay, GMAT says start heavy. Okay. Um, Come on, guys, please participate. It's okay if you get it wrong. The idea behind asking these questions is because I know that once the discussion that we had till now, that focus on the initial few quarters, you might start making these kind of timing strategies. So I just want to get this clear. What about the others? What do you think? Would you go with a linear strategy? 3/4 of the test can be linear. Okay. Okay, so you're customizing it. Okay. Okay, keep in mind, guys, that both these strategies, I would say, is not correct. Okay, the first strategy is not good at all. Don't try to equally distribute your time into 4 quarters. Understand this, that as I told you, it's an adaptive quiz. The question would keep on, the difficulty level of the question would keep on increasing. Okay, so if you kind of keep your linear pacing strategy, then you would be, giving a lot more time than necessary in the few quarters, and oops, my bad, a lot more time in the initial few quarters where it is not needed, and you will be giving less time in quarters where you actually need time. And the problem with the start heavy strategy is, again, even this is a problem, by the way, because if you spend a lot of time in the first 9 in the first 2 quarters, you'll hardly be left with any time out here. Hardly, because you already spent 50 minutes here, 40 to 50 minutes. So you can understand you'll be left with just 15 minutes or 20 minutes out here. Okay, so again, I know you might be wondering, hey, Saqib just told us that we need to focus on the first few quarters. So what should I do? Well, what makes sense? What we usually prefer is a slightly, staggered kind of a way in which you need to decide the 4 quarters, the time that you need to give. It's neither linear, it's neither heavy. Ideally, what you should do is you should spend about 1 minute 40 seconds in the first quarter, roughly. Okay, these are not set in stone. It could be 130, it could be 150, 10 seconds here and there. Does not matter, but ideally it should be 140. And why are we saying this is because in the initial question that you get in the first 8 or 9 questions would be mostly hovering around medium questions. Okay, some might be easy, but most of them would be medium questions. So since most of them would be medium questions, it would make sense that you spend slightly less time here. You should be good enough to be able to solve these questions quickly. Okay, now if you are doing well, now this timing, by the way, just to let you know, is based on the assumption that you would be, performing well in the quiz. So if you're performing well in the test, then obviously the question that you would get would have a higher difficulty level. Since they have a high difficulty level, the difficulty level has increased. Some of the questions would be medium, some of the questions would be medium hard. So obviously trying to complete those in 1 minute 40 seconds would be a problem. Okay, and I hope now you understand why the linear strategy won't work here. Because if you're using a linear strategy, then in quarter 2 you will have a tough time completing everything in 16 minutes. Okay, so you might actually need 18 minutes or 19 minutes, but you don't have that. Okay, and that would create a panic in your mind. You might not know what to do. So that is why usually in the second quarter we say that you spend 2 minutes, not a problem, but make sure that you get as many questions correct as possible. And if everything goes well and if you're able to do well, you will get even more difficult questions in the third quarter. And here again, obviously, logically, if you're getting hard questions, you will not be able to solve them very quickly. So spend slightly more time here, because here spend 2 minutes 20 seconds, give as much time as you need to solve the question. Since you've aced your first three sections, you've almost managed to ensure that you'll get a very good score in verbal. And when you come to the last quarter, obviously you'll have less time. And this is something that you'll be mentally prepared with. Okay, that okay, for I have 9 questions, I have 1 minute 20 seconds. There's not a lot of time in hand, but that is totally fine. Even if you have 10 to 12 minutes in hand, okay, you just need to ensure out of 9 questions you pick and choose and you get about 50% correct, and then you're done. Okay, and these are just ballpark estimates. Obviously we can get more correct, well and good, but even if you manage to do your first three quarters well, you are, if you go with this mindset, okay, 12 minutes left with me and I need to do, or 10 minutes left with me and I have 9 questions, I need to just get 4 to 5 questions correct, that's all I need to do in the fourth quarter, you will be able to do well in your verbal exam. Okay, there are certain baselines also which we recommend. Okay, when you're practicing, when you're in the practice phase, you can obviously try to ensure that you get used to these kind of timing, that making sure that you get an SC question correct in 1.5 minutes, a CR question about 2 minutes, and an RC in 1 minute 50 seconds, or averaging out per question. Okay, one so this is like kind of the ballpark time that we suggest. Now, don't set this in stone. Why? Because there could be certain areas that you might be good at. Okay, so for example, you might be very good in sentence correction, and I've seen students who are able to do a few sentence correction questions very quickly, like in a minute, 1 minute, 20 seconds, 10 seconds. So adjust your time upward and downward depending on your strong and weak area. So for example, if someone out there, if you feel that, hey, I'm not that good with CRs and I need a little more time to do the, read the stimulus and do all the analysis, pre-analysis or pre-thinking, and I might need 10, 15 seconds more there, then that's totally fine. Try and see which area is strong. If SCs are strong, try to take out that extra time from sentence correction. Take 15 seconds from there, use that, utilize that time in CR questions. Okay. That's a good question, GMAT. I'll come to it whether you need to constantly track time or not. Okay. And while practicing question, as I told you, devote time, right amount of time for each difficulty level. As I said, don't set this in stone. Why? Because in SC also, when I'm saying 1.5, it's quite possible for easy questions, you might need just 1 minute. Medium questions, you might be able to do in 1.5, and maybe a hard question, you might take, 1 minute to 1.75 minutes, something like that. Okay. So whenever you're practicing, try to kind of, change the amount of time that you would need, and this would require a bit of a practice, so that you, while solving questions, you can get an idea, okay, I might be dealing with a difficult question, this seems difficult, so I might need to give a little bit more time while solving the question. Okay. Now, as a good question which GMAT has asked is that you need to constantly track time while answering questions. Guys, when I'm mentioning these time, okay, what you need to do is you don't need to kind of track your time after every question. Okay. So for example, if I've already told you that you spend, 1 minute 40 seconds per question, okay, for the first 9 questions. So ideally, you should be spending about 15 minutes here, right? So what you do is, once you're done with about your 8 to 9 questions, post that you try and look at your time. How much time do you have in hand? Ideally, after your 9 questions, 8, 9 questions, you should have 50 minutes in hand. If you have 15 minutes in hand, then that's fine. You don't need to pace up, pace down. You can continue taking the quiz as is. So don't look at your time constantly. To look at your time after every 7 to 8 questions. In fact, in your paper, you can mark down certain timelines if you want to. That is something we sometimes suggest. That for the first 9 questions, you can write down, okay, after I'm done with my first 9 questions, I should have, 50 minutes left. After I'm done with my 18 questions, again, you're spending about how much? 18 minutes here, right? So you should be left with about 32 minutes. And these are rough time again, plus minus 1 or 2 minutes. Please be, open to that. Don't panic. Let's say you should be left with 32 minutes and you're left with 30 minutes. Don't panic. Just be, aware of that fact that you're running short by 2 minutes and you need to kind of make it up somewhere. Okay. But don't look at your time after each and every question. As mentioned, you might lose your time, and that could be a problem. Okay. Now, how do you optimize your time, to take your question? So people do ask me that, like, how do I decide whether I need to take 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes? How do I fix that? Now, understand this, that this is something that you don't usually fix during your mock phase. A lot of people come to their mock phase and then start fixing the timing, which is the wrong strategy. Now at GMAT quiz, what we usually suggest is breaking down your preparation into three different parts: your learning phase, your fine-tuning phase, and then your mock phase. Okay, so the fine-tuning phase is usually the phase where you decide where you need to improve. Okay, so there could be certain topics once you're done with everything. So for example, with you're done with your verbal course, you're done with your quant course. Okay, and then you realize that there are certain topics where you are taking more time. So for example, in CR, I've seen people taking more time in bold phase or evaluate questions. I've seen people take a lot of time when they're doing the PNC or some geometry questions, difficult geometry questions. They end up taking a lot of time. So, and they take up a lot of time because the concept is still not very clear to them. There's still some discomfort on how to apply, the text of extremes, or when to apply P, when to apply C. Those kind of issues are still there, lingering somewhere. So if because of this you're taking more time to solve the question because your concept is still not clear, then ideally you should solidify your concept. Understand timing is kind of a side effect. Okay, timing issues come up or crop up because of some other inherent problems that you haven't fixed. Okay, so if your concept is not good, if you're not aware of a concept, then obviously you'll take more time. Okay, so time is like the output that you're getting out of it. It's like you don't know something, that is why you're taking more time. So you cannot reduce your time automatically by practicing more question. You need to fix the core problem. The core problem is concept. You haven't solidified your concept. So ideally you need to identify which areas you need to solidify concept. And at GMAT Fest, especially those of you GMAT Fest students out here listening to this, you can actually look at the dashboard. On the dashboard, once you start doing a lot of concepts, completing quant verbal, on your quant and verbal dashboard, you'll start seeing recommendations from our AI telling you which concepts you still need to solidify. Okay, those are the concepts which I would highly recommend that you go through, revise more, and make sure that you improve. And those of you who haven't tried it out, I would recommend looking at our free trial, guys. You can do a few topics, okay, which are available on free trial, and then look at the dashboard and understand how it works. It's a really good way to understand where you need to work more on. Also, you don't have to spend a lot of time thinking, analyzing, looking at dashboards, and trying to figure out everything out on your own. You don't have to do that. That's the best part about our dashboard. Everything is very clear cut, given to you, told to you where you need to work on and where you don't need to work on. And in fact, we do provide lessons separately also on the dashboard. With one click, you will be able to get all the consolidated list of videos to look at. You can even practice questions on these topics once you have done your revision. Okay. The second area where, say, after a certain point of time, you realize, hey, my concepts are pretty good now. I'm not facing any problem at all. Okay, my easy questions, medium questions, I'm getting correct. But then there could be some application-related issues because of which you might be facing a problem. Like, for example, you might be spending a lot of time, say, doing a pre-analysis during CR question, or when you are solving an SC question, you might not be applying the right methodology to solve the question. So, for doing the meaning analysis, you're not doing all of that. You're just going into the options and solving questions. You've learned the concept well, you know each and every concept of SC, but you're not approaching it in the right way to solve the question. In quant, I've seen people do, solving a DS question by just reading the question stem and not even analyzing at all, and then going to the jumping directly into the statements, spending a lot of time, wasting a lot of time in doing that, and realizing that they're wasting a lot of time. And it's very simple. You're not doing a pre-analysis. You're not reading the sentences properly. You're not understanding the stimulus properly. In RC, people skim through the reading, RC. You have to read the RC properly. Anyone who says that you can skim through it, read the question first, those kind of strategies which don't work, please don't try those out. Don't try to read the question first and then go to the RC. I've seen people suggesting these. That's absolutely for the lack of a better word, crap, frankly speaking. You don't need to do that. Okay, so even if you know the concepts well, if you are not making sure that you're following the right methodology, you're not applying it properly, you will still be facing timing issues. Okay, so don't think by just randomly practicing is going to help you out. So I've already mentioned how you can fix your concept, but I'm going to just go you step by step, show you what are the 3 steps that you can follow to ensure that you can improve it. Obviously, review the concepts, review the topics. I've already told you, you'll find this on your dashboard. You can, and you'll find this on your dashboard after you're done with, your course, or after you have gone through a few lessons. Don't expect to show it directly, but we constantly keep on analyzing your performance. Okay, so on the basis of that, we'll suggest which ones you need to review. Once you're done with that, on the dashboard only, you'll see you can create solidify quizzes. Okay, you need to take them. You need to take solidify quizzes. In fact, if you want, you can create customized quizzes also, 10 questions per topic if you want to, and see whether you've improved in that particular concept or not, whether you're able to apply it properly or not without thinking. Once you're set, once you're sure that, okay, now I've reviewed the concept, I'm able to solve these questions without wasting a lot of time, then you can start solving, 30, 40 questions in a sets of 10. Obviously, don't do it in one go. Okay, in doing sets of 10 and slowly, steadily, gradually reduce your time. Now, what do I mean by gradually reduce time? This is also a very important aspect which I want to focus on. When you're in the learning phase, guys, you'll realize that you might be spending 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes, this kind of time while you're going through your quant or verbal. Either of it doesn't matter. Okay, but you might be spending. Don't try to drastically bring it down to 2 minutes or 1 minute 50 seconds. Please don't do that. Okay, it might take some time. So what you ideally need to do when you are in your fine-tune phase, okay, when you're going through the GMAT quiz recommendations from the AI, or when you're using your customized quizzes, try to gradually reduce your time by 30 seconds, 20 seconds, and then bring it down to 2 minutes. So for example, if you're averaging 3 minutes per question and you're getting a very good accuracy at this, okay, very good accuracy at 3 minutes, try to see if you are able to manage, to get the same accuracy at 2.5 minutes. If you are well and good, very good, do this for 2 to 3 days more. Okay, and then again drop it down to 2 minutes. Continue the practice, see if your accuracy has improved. If it hasn't, keep on doing it. Try to analyze what are you still not doing well. Whether it's still some concept that you're facing a problem with, or is it application? If it is application, you'll realize it really well, and I'll tell you why. How to analyze whether the issue is the application issue. Now try and see when you're done with the quiz, okay, go back and see how are you solving a question. Okay, and be honest to yourself. This is like really important, guys. I've seen people say, hey, I do everything, but when I deep dive and I ask them to solve questions in front of me, be it quant or verbal, I realize that no, they're not following the right strategy. So try and think, hey, are you reading the question stem properly, quickly? That could be one of the problems. You're not reading the question stem properly, be it SC, be it quant, doesn't matter. If you're reading it very quickly, you'll not have a very good understanding of it. You'll have a rough understanding. Okay, and let's consider this as an SC example. Okay, so if you have a rough understanding, with that, you may be able to eliminate 2 to 3 choices. Okay, if you're able to eliminate 2 to 3 choices, and this is again very common phenomena, right? I've a lot of you come up and say, I always get stuck between 2 choices, and I end up choosing the one which is incorrect. And when you're stuck with 2 choices, what do? You reread the options, you reread the questions, and after some point of time, you realize you have spent enough time, and then you choose something because time is running out. Now, notice what you are trying to do. You tried to read very quickly. You wanted to just get done with the question stem. So you read in 20, 30 seconds. You eliminate very quickly the questions in 20, 30 seconds, but you end up spending a lot of time in these 2 areas, because now you're rereading the answer choices, you're rereading the question stem again. So you are wasting time here a lot. And this is like the wrong approach, because at the end of the day, you might not realize, which I want you to analyze on your own, if you do your analysis, you realize you're spending 2 to 3.5 minutes because you're not following the right approach. So once you're done with your solidified your concepts, and once you're trying to reduce your time, once you're in the application phase, actively try to see whether you are following the right approach or not. There's a good chance that you might not be following the right approach. Okay, since you're just worried about time, you're worried about time, you want to make sure that you complete it quickly, but you're not realizing that just because you're worrying about time, you are harming yourself by taking more time. Okay, and now that I've told you this, please actively track it. You'll realize that some of you might be doing this. So this will clearly tell you that you are not following the right strategy to solve the question. Okay, so for example, let's say if you're doing reading, since I was talking about reading comprehension, there's something that we advocate at GMAT Quiz, is that you need to do involved and evolved reading. You need to think like an author, and you need to understand the author's point of view, because if you do that, you would be able to solve the question much more easily. You have to be involved in it. So we ask you to break down the sentence in smaller chunks, understand its meaning, relate all these sentences that you're coming through. So try and relate what, if I'm coming to this particular current sentence, how is it related to the previous things that have been talked about? Because that will tell you what is the author trying to tell us. Okay, you need to also see what kind of words they are using. There might be some transition words like although, thus, therefore, in contrast. Those kind of things might be there. And try to summarize each passage. Now, this is something that you need to do actively in the initial phase by actually writing it down and doing it. And you might feel that it's taking a lot of time, but slowly gradually, if you follow this process, some of these processes can be shortened. They cannot be skipped, just to be very clear. You cannot skip any of these steps, but some of these steps could be shortened. You will realize after a certain point of time, you can do these intuitively. And a very good example would be like, a few days back, I was teaching my niece fraction, okay? And, fractions are so intuitive for us. We are able to do it very quickly, right? But when I was teaching her, she was taking some time to do mixed fractions, those kind of things. And why was she taking time? She was taking time because that's still new to her. I'm sure after a year or two, she'll be able to do it very quickly. Well, obviously, we don't have a year to do that. I can understand that. But with practice, she'll be able to ensure that she improves her speed. The same thing works here also. In the initial phase, when you're following a new way of reading, learning, it might take some time. But if you consistently keep on doing the same thing again and again, you'll realize that it becomes very intuitive. Okay. And so just understanding a method is understand the method really well. If you want to follow the right approach, try to apply that method in some questions. Okay, solve 10 to 15 questions. Obviously there are a lot of quizzes in our platform, so you'll be able to do that. Solve questions and review it very well. Understand whether you're following the right methodology or not, and if you're deviating, why did you deviate? How do you avoid that? Did you skip the sentence? Did you skip a few words? What did you do so that you can improve it? So self-analysis is really, really important in this case. Okay. So if you want to master any concept, this is how we always suggest that you need to do. You need to, after you learn the you need to practice a lot of questions, and then make sure that you internalize. Once you internalize the process of solving the questions as I mentioned you will be able to solve the question very quickly. Okay, so learn the concept, apply it in a few questions, review your solutions actively to understand where is the gap in the way you solve questions. And once you have done that, you will automatically notice that you've internalized the process very easily. Okay, don't just go through the concept, do few questions and think it's done. That's not going to work. Okay, and again, as I told you, I'll give you proof for each and everything that I'm talking about, how changing strategy does help. So this is one case in point which I want to talk about. Okay, so Akshat is one of these students who was mentored by me only. He managed to get a 650 to 730 in just 24 days. So he started off with GMAT Wiz only, and once he took the first test, what we realized was that he was facing an issue in critical reasoning and reading comprehension. Okay, so I talked to him. I tried to understand what was the issue, what went wrong, and then we realized that these are the two areas which he inherently wasn't doing well. We had that kind of understanding beforehand, only before he went to took the exam, that there are certain areas that might need a little bit of improvement, and he panicked also. He kind of panicked because and ended up, the reason behind panicking was he ended up taking a lot of time in the first quarter, and his accuracy is pretty good, so he should be kind of happy with it. But what happened was, since he took a lot of time, he kind of got scared or panicked, and then ended up spending, as you can see, the time that he had was less, and since he was in the panic mode, he could not do well in the remaining 3 quarters. So we kind of discussed what needs to be done. What number one, you have issues in a few topics, right? You need to improve in your critical reasoning. You have to work on reading comprehensions. His concepts were good. He understood most of the concepts except for a few of them which we talked about, analyzed that, okay, these are the areas that you're not doing well. So Shivam, this is part of your revision thing only. So just to understand this, when you want to revise, you don't revise everything. Okay, like in this case, in case of Akshat, he didn't have to revise sentence correction, already at 87th percentile. If you're doing well, you don't need to. You try and see where you need to work in critical reasoning and where you need to work in reading comprehension. So on further understanding that, okay, in reading comprehension, in critical reasoning, you're not very good at, say, evaluate questions. You are taking a lot of time analyzing the questions again and again. So he worked on those areas that were suggested to him. Okay, and how do you work? I've already told you. Try and figure out whether it's a concept is weak or whether your application is weak, Shivam. Once you understand which one is it weak, you can work accordingly. If your concept is weak, you need to go back and learn the concepts. If your application is the issue, then obviously you need to practice more questions, actively analyze your solution, and see which part of the process you're not following and try to improve on that. And see, in 24 days, once he worked on those feedbacks, like not panicking at all, making sure the areas that where his concept was weak, you need to improve on. Then when he took the exam again, he managed to improve by so much. You can see 44 to 91st percentile, an improvement in both of them. SC remained unchanged. There was no need for him to, do anything in SC. Obviously, we still recommended him to keep on practicing SC so that you don't forget it. But since you're able to focus actively, which we usually call as precision targeting, finding out precisely where you're weak at and improving on it, you would be able to do well. So he improved his understanding, okay, because he wasn't following the frameworks properly. And the good part about, see, if you're using the GMAT Whiz course, you'll see that we have given you very awesome frameworks. We have even told you what to do when you are not able to pre-think. So all these things have been clearly defined in our course. So all you need to do is follow it properly. If you're able to do it, you will be able to solve questions easily. Reviewing the solution in depth, which I've seen people not do. They just look at the solution for the sake of looking at it, but not actively trying to figure out why, at which step did I make the mistake. Okay, identifying the type of mistakes you make. I've seen people, for example, choosing out of scope a lot in CR questions because they did not even understand, the stimulus is not talking about that particular thing. So they always end up choosing out of scope answers. Okay, and these are something that we've already discussed, actively discussed all these kind of mistakes. So you just need to ask yourself, make a note of it, that what kind of traps you're always falling for, and then actively try to avoid it. Okay, and lastly, as I told you, you need to revisit the concepts. Once you revisit it, you would be able to do well. In fact, if you're interested in understanding how he improved quickly, I am sharing the video also. You can look at the success story interview and see what did he do different to improve. Okay. And in fact, one last thing about his was that he managed to reduce anxiety also. Anxiety, we did discuss actively with Akshat that it's not that he cannot do well. He even understood that he panicked a lot, which wasn't even needed at that point of time. In fact, when he took the test, he ended up taking a slightly more time also in the first quarter, but this time he did not panic. He actually managed to ensure that he stayed calm and not mess up his second, third, or fourth quarter. Okay, though his first quarter was still a little, the more mistakes in the first quarter and more time. But look at the second, third, fourth quarter. If he would have panicked, then again he would have messed up the last three quarters. So having confidence also is very important. Having the right mindset. Okay. Now, very quickly coming to the quant strategy, I know I've talked a lot about verbal, how you need to improve in verbal. The good part about timing strategy for quant is that it's almost, similar to the verbal part only. But as I told you, there's just one small difference, is that in quant, since there's just 31 questions, the first 10 questions play an active role. Like in verbal, we notice that we need to at least get more questions till the first three quarters, right? In quant, I would say the first two quarters is like very, very crucial. Third is also there, but since the number of questions are less, you can understand the first 16, 17 questions kind of decides what is really going to happen. So, and here again, there's an example to show you that how the first 10 questions are important. So notice out here, one mistake, two mistake, three mistake, 0, 1, 2, 3. So as you can see, the difference between these two, just there's a difference of once again one question only. Okay, there's a difference of one question can create a difference of 2 points out here. Okay, so the first quarter is actually, I know 2 point difference might seem less, and I've showed you really drastic, changes in verbal. So this might not seem a lot, but it does hurt, right? You kind of just missed one question here, nothing else. But you missed your chance of getting a 50. That is why it is very, very, very important that the first two quarters that you do really well. In fact, I tell students, make sure that you get, if possible, ace the first to get all of them correct if you can. If you're able to get the first two quarters, all of them correct, then getting a Q50 is almost kind of guaranteed. And as far as the last questions are concerned, as you can see, there's not a lot of difference. So if you notice in the last two quarters, how many mistakes out here? So in this case, 5 mistakes out of 14 questions. If you look at this one, you can notice 3 and 4, 7 mistakes out of 14. And here you can see, you can literally, there are 6 mistakes here and 3 mistakes here, 9 mistakes. So notice the difference here, that there's a difference of 4 mistakes, but still, since the mistakes were, at the very late end in the third and fourth quarter, the scores are not getting affected by a lot. There's a difference of just 3 points, even when this person made, almost all, just got one question correct here. Just one question correct, and there's still a difference of 3 points. So I hope you can understand the the importance of the first two here also, and obviously the same strategy applies for quant also. The more you can delay your mistakes, the better it is. There's hardly any difference in the scores. So if you're somebody who are targeting 47, because I've seen students coming and telling me I just need a 47 because I can get a 14 verbal. If you're someone like that, I hope this ESR gives you an example. This helps you understand that it's not that you have to ace all 4 quarters. Just make sure that your first two goes really well. The second one, if you perform decently, the last one again, I wouldn't recommend follow exactly this, but yeah, if even if you are in such a bad situation that you're getting 2 3 questions correct at the end, you may still end up getting a 47 48. I've seen students. I've I've seen students. Oh, just one sec. Let me remove it. Just one sec. Yeah. Okay. I hope you can see now. Yeah. Okay. So even if you make, as I was saying, that even if you get the first 2 quarters really well, do well in the first 2 quarters, and decently in the last two, it's fine. I've seen students panicking when they see, okay, in quant also, I'm left with 10 questions, 10 minutes, something like that, and then messing it up. But keep in mind, believe in yourself. If you have done your first 2 3 quarters well, then if you're performing well in the first 2 to 3 quarters, then there's going to be no problem at all, even if you mess up your last quarter in this case also. Okay, especially in the last 15, you can see it's hardly 2 to 3 points difference. Okay, so ace your first 15 and then you are done. So, what should be your test taking strategy as far as if you're targeting, a Q47? Make sure that you get the first 15 questions right. Here, I would not say save time. I'll talk about what kind of time you should give in the next slide. Don't worry about it. But trying to save time is not a strategy. Don't think I'll do it very quickly. Not going to help. Okay. Third quarter, just maintain a decent accuracy. And fourth, as you can understand, even if you mess up it a little bit, that's okay. But choose your question selectively, and this would require, guys, a little bit of practice. So a lot of students ask me this question: how do I know when to skip? You would know when to skip in two ways. One is you read the question, ask yourself, do you know exactly what to do in this? Okay, if you know exactly what you do, know what to do in this particular question, I would say attempt it. Okay, because you know that you'll get it correct. Okay, but after reading the question, if you're in such a stage that you may have to think of a strategy to solve this question, and you're not sure whether you will be able to even come up with it, then ideally you can skip it. And I'm talking about the third and fourth quarter. Okay, I'm not talking the first two. First two, obviously, you need to ensure that you do get almost all of them correct. In quant, also, obviously, you need to ensure that you don't make consecutive mistakes. And this is not only for quant, this goes for, I would say, verbal also. Don't make any consecutive mistakes. Don't leave any questions unattempted. Okay. Also, one important strategy which I would want you to try is quant verbal, verbal quant. Which one works for you? Okay, because I've seen people changing their strategy at the last minute. They have taken the mocks always quant first, and in the exam they went and tried verbal first, and they messed up everything. So these kind of strategies needs to be tried in the mocks. See which one works. Like for example, if you ask me, I would say I'll try with verbal first, then quant. Why? Because I want to do verbal in the fresh mind, and quant I can do it. Even if I'm exhausted, it doesn't matter. I'll be able to do it. So that's my way of doing it. You need to decide what works for you. Okay, there are a lot of people who say I need some time, for my brains to run a bit, churn a bit, and then I get into the groove and start solving questions. So decide if you are going to miss out on 1 or 2 minutes in the starting, which section do you want to do that with? Whether you want to do that with quant or whether you want to do that with verbal. Okay, as far as timing strategy is concerned, it's almost kind of the same staggered thing that I've showed you in the verbals section. That you start off with 1.5 minute in quarter one, then you slowly and gradually increase your timing, and the last quarter obviously you'll have less time. Okay, which, as I already told you, is totally okay, because if you are doing well, if you're getting all these questions correct, as many questions correct as possible, it doesn't matter even if you have less time in the last in the last quarter. Okay, same strategy would work here also, devoting the right amount of time for each difficulty level question. A lot of people come up and say, whenever I'm doing quant webinars, hey, this question will take about 3.5 minutes in the exam. What should I do? Okay, so please understand, it's a difficult question. Okay, a difficult question, not all difficult questions can be solved in 2 minutes, whether it's a quant question or verbal question. So there you might need 30-40 seconds more. Somebody or some expert who tells you otherwise is guiding you wrong. Please keep in mind, some questions will take more time. Obviously, easy questions, I do expect some of the easy questions that you get correct in a minute. Okay. Also, some of the questions, obviously, if you're good with, you should make sure that you realize these things, that you're actually good with those kind of questions. Like, I'm very good with number properties questions. Okay. But when it comes to algebra, some algebra questions, I may need a little bit more time to do it. That's my way of I know my strength and weaknesses. So ideally, you should also know it, because, and this is important, especially in the third and fourth quarter, so that you know when to skip, when not to skip. And by the way, you can use the GMAT quiz dashboard also, because it clearly shows in the quant section, verbal section, both. If you go down at the bottom, there's a deep dive which clearly shows which area you're really good at and which area you're not. So you can plan accordingly in the exam also, where which ones you need to skip, which ones you don't need to skip. Okay. And the last 2 points which I want to make sure is that don't take any questions, too lightly. I've seen people think, hey, this is an easy question, seems like an easy question, like a DS question. They end up falling for C traps, T traps. So if you're solving a question somewhere in the middle and you're doing really well, and you feel that the question might be easy, check again, guys, please. There's a good chance that there might be some obvious trap which there might be some trap which you are not being able to find out. Okay. Lastly, this is something that we sometimes do in the exam just to ensure that we are getting the correct answer. So if we know two methods to solve a question, and if we have time in hand, by the way, then we also kind of check it, double check with the other method also sometimes. So that just to ensure that we are getting the correct answer. But please do this only when you have sufficient time in hand. If you don't have, just make sure to check your calculations are correct, mark your answer, move on. Okay. So some of the key takeaways which I want to give out here is that make sure that you don't just think that if you give more time that you'll be able to get high accuracy. Okay, that's kind of a wrong assumption, and I've already told you that high accuracy, just focusing on accuracy would be the wrong thing. Okay, because you need to ensure that you have the right skills to get difficult questions also correct. If you don't have that kind of a skill, you will not be able to do well in the exam. Okay, so and reduce your time per questions for all kind of questions. So for an easy question, try and see if you can do those in 1 minute. Medium questions 1.5 minutes. Hard questions 2.5 minutes. To try to gradually reduce the time for all three. Don't think if you're able to solve all questions in 2 minutes, then you're done. That's the wrong strategy. Okay. Third thing is don't change your strategy. As I told you, don't start with quant verbal in the exam. If you have been taking verbal quant in the mocks, don't do that. Don't panic. Don't try to change your methodology of solving questions in the exam just because you're running short on time, because those things backfire a lot. Okay. Mas- as I told you, take strategic timeouts also. I told you, like, if you're getting a difficult question, if you're running out of time, pause for 30 seconds, not a problem. Ask yourself what kind of strategy would you want to go ahead with, skipping it or moving ahead and doing that question correct. Okay. Uh, and it is very important that you get as many consecutive questions correct as possible. Okay, so don't, I did tell you that skip wherever required, but use that judiciously. So if you are confident and if you know that these are the questions that I am comfortable with, and you're getting them back to back, solve them back to back because you know how to do them. The moment you come across a question which you don't know, or if you're in such a situation where you don't know the methodology, then only you skip it. Okay. uh, Spend more time on reading the question. I did just show you that if you skip questions, don't read it properly, at the end you'll be spending more time. And guys, this I'm telling from personal experiences. I'm telling you from seeing a lot of students doing this and messing up the timing. Okay, so if you really want to do well, spend slightly more time on questions so that you don't have to read it again. Okay. And obviously, the last point is, see, whatever I'm discussing now is based on the fact that your concepts are in place. You have gone through your quant and verbal and everything. So don't try to strategize a lot unless and until your scores in each and every topic is not good. If that is not good, then obviously you can understand scoring would be a problem for you. Okay, so that's it from my end, guys. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Once again, I just wanted to give you a reminder that we are running a Black Friday sale. In fact, we have started a new pricing model also. So if you want to, access the whole course for 2 months and 4 months, also we have that option. And we are running, a steep discount also. There's like we're giving a 6-month course as 199. So if you're interested in preparing with us, please feel free to. Look at it. I'm also sharing Piyush's link in case you want to talk to us once before, deciding whether you want to go ahead with GMAT quiz or not. You can book a call with us. You can see the Calendly link flashing on your screen. I'm also sharing the email ID. You can either write to piyush@gmatquiz.com, or you can also write to support@gmatquiz.com, both of them. In case you want to talk to us. The calendar link is already there. Feel free to use that to book a call with us. It's completely free. Okay. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I'll be more than happy to take them. Anything which I have missed, if I haven't talked about. I hope you enjoyed this session. If you did, I would request you to like the session also, so that it reaches to as many people as possible. And I am here now for another 5-10 minutes. If you have any questions, please ask. I hope you found this webinar useful. Shivam, so in the mail, if you must have got a mail regarding a mentor being assigned to you. If you haven't, please wait till Monday, because of weekends you might have not got a mail. But how it usually works is that you get to speak to your mentor every 15 days. Okay, so we usually share the calendar link of that particular mentor, and you book your first call after 15 days of your enrollment. You talk to your mentor, and they will then, based on that particular call, they'll give you feedback on how well you have performed so far, and also what should be your next plan of action. So you can book your calls every 2 weeks. Okay, can you please elaborate on being selective in the last few questions? Okay, Jayesh, what I mean by being selective is, as I mentioned, was that, let's say, as I told you, you might be left with 10 questions, 10 minutes kind of a scenario. Now, obviously, you won't be able to do all those 10 questions in 10, uh, really. But when I say you won't be able to do, what I mean is you might not be able to do justice to all 10 questions. So how do you decide which ones to do and which ones not to do? Okay, so the way you decide is based on your comfort level. Okay, so for example, if the first question, in the last 10 questions, the first question that you get is something which is which belongs to, say, coordinate geometry, and you're not comfortable with it, you read the question. I would still recommend reading the question, because it might be a very basic question. So there's a small chance that you might have done it before and you might know how to solve it. But after reading the question, giving 30 seconds to it, 40 seconds to it, you realize that you have no clue how to solve that question. Okay, you don't know what should be the methodology, and you feel that there are a lot of inferences that you may have to draw to come to the answer, a lot of cases you might have to make to get to the answer. There are a lot of post slope questions, right, which will require a lot of an analysis. Now, in that case, if you're not comfortable with it, you skip it. You decide that you will not do it, you mark something, and you move on to the next question, and then decide what you need to do with the next question. As mentioned before, ideally you should try and avoid getting consecutive mistakes. Okay, so if the next question is something that you can do, or you have a little bit of idea to do it, ideally you should attempt that particular question. So that is what I mean by being selective. Okay, don't try the strategy of reading each and every question, trying everything, little bit of each one of them. That is a bad strategy. Okay, don't try to spread out your time across all 10 questions. Out of 10, if you can get 5 to 6 questions also correct, that is good. I've seen people take mock and then realize later on that, hey, there were a few questions that they could have done at the end because they were easy, but they missed it because they were giving a lot of time emphasis on the first few questions. Okay, I hope that answers your question, Jayesh. If you need more, anything more on that, please let me know. Okay, another question is, when I do the verbal part, I find it hard to stay focused because of long and varying text. Uh, See, in this case, we usually ask peer students to start with short quizzes. Okay, so first of all, try once you're done with your, the learning phase is done, and then now you're in your practice phase. Don't start by taking a lot of full length quizzes like 36 questions, because I do understand that it might be very hard to focus. So in the initial phases, we ask you to start off with 10 questions per quiz. Make sure that you are comfortable solving 10 questions in 20-25 minutes without any issues, without losing focus as such. Okay, once you feel that, no, I'm comfortable now, I'm comfortable solving 10 questions without any lack of, without losing focus, then you increase your slowly and gradually increase your number of questions. Take it to 18. Okay, 18 kind of replicates the first 2 quarters of a verbal. Okay, so 18 questions, in those 18 questions, take 2 RCs. Okay, take about 6 questions of SC, 4 question of CR, something like that, a healthy mix, and then do that for another 2 to 3 days and take as many quizzes as possible. The idea is to get used to the exam exam like environment as much as possible. Okay, and that would come if you consistently gradually increase the amount of questions that you're doing. So the session time should not drastically go to 65 minutes in one go. Start with 25 minutes, go to 40 minutes, and then finally reach 65 minutes. And as I told you, if you're somebody who is it's very hard for you to stay focused, then ideally try to attempt verbal in the first half. Again, that's a suggestion. You can obviously try the mocks and see how it works, because if you find it hard to stay focused, there's a good chance if you attempt verbal in the second half, then you might not be able to do full justice to that particular section. Okay, I hope that answers your query. Okay, when I gave my first 15 questions were 3 RCs and I wasted a lot of time, and which caused me to see, understand this, that in such cases, obviously, you got 3 RCs in the first 50, like the first 3 RCs you got in the first 2 quarters, if I understand correctly, right? VM, is that what you're saying? Is that what happened in the first 2 quarters? First 13 questions, you're saying the first 13 questions, all three were RCs? Is that what you're saying? In the first quarter, you cannot get three. Okay, yeah, okay, got it. So in the first 13 questions, if you ended up getting three RCC, obviously it will slightly skew your time, because as mentioned before, in RC's questions, you might be needing 1 minute 50 seconds, 2 minutes, but it will not overly change your time. Understand this in this way, because now the remaining questions that you would be getting would be all SCs and CRs, because obviously there will be just one RC left, assuming that you get 4 RCs in the whole exam. Okay, the first 3 RC is already done. And if you remember the timing that I showed you 1 minute 50 seconds per RC question. Okay, so in that case, you can pause for 30 seconds. I told you pausing for 30 seconds is not a problem. Do a quick calculation, mental calculation, asking yourself, okay, I'm doing 3 RCs now. So if I'm completing 3 RCs, did I take about how much time did I take per question? Ideally, it should not exceed 26 minutes. Okay, verse to verse here, it should not exceed 26 minutes. So from there, you do your calculation. Take 30 seconds, do your calculation, think in mind, okay, I have 40 minutes in my hand. I have 40 minutes. Now, most of the questions that I'll be getting would be SCs and CRs. So if I have to break my time, how should I do that? That's totally fine. No? Yeah, that's totally fine. If you're getting all SCs and CRs, that's a good thing. So take 30 seconds to do a mental calculation, or write it on a piece of paper saying, okay, now 40 minutes I have left. And this calculation will not take you more than 30 seconds or even a minute also. That is still good, because for the rest of the exam, you'll have peace of mind. Are you getting my point? You'll have your peace of mind. You'll know that, okay, I'll be getting just SEs and CRs. So the next 9 questions, if I'm doing roughly, how much time should I give? Right? So you can think in this way, 4 questions. If you're getting 4 questions CR, 4 questions SC, then 8 minutes and 6 minutes, 14 to 15 minutes per quarter is what you need to give. Are you getting my point? 14 to 17, 14 to 17, what I would say, because gradually the time would increase a little bit. But 14 to 17 is roughly the time that we need for the second and the third quarter. And with that mental calculation in mind, you give your the next third and the fourth quarter. So we talked about strategic pause, right? I was not saying that for the sake of saying it. This is that because these kind of things can happen in the exam, where you might get though this is very rare, by the way. Okay, very, very rare. I've seen people starting their exam with RCs, but very rarely I've heard that somebody has got 3 RCs back to back. So even if I do that, even if that happens, which will throw you off, I'm pretty sure. But after completing your RCs, you should pause and see how much time you have. Take a minute, do your calculation, and then move ahead with the rest of your section. Because if you don't do it, in the whole exam, you'll be always thinking about what to do, how do I catch up, whether I'm catching up or not, whether I'm running out of time. That's a problem. Okay, so strategic pause is the answer. So plan it during the exam only. Pause for 30, 40 seconds, decide what you need to do for the remaining 3 quarters, and then move ahead. And try these in the exams. This is for all of you who are still there. Try this in the mock also. See if you're adding these strategic pauses here and there. Is it helping you or not? Believe me, with a peace of mind, no? With a calm mind, you'll be able to do better in the exam. Okay, any other questions, guys? Okay. So I don't see any more questions. By the way, if you have any more questions, feel free to write to us. You can see the email ID on the screen. I would highly recommend booking calls with us. If you're planning to take your GMAT, do talk to us, and then we'll help you out and understand how we can, help you ace the exam. With this, I'm ending the session now. All the best, guys.